dates so that we know when you became MP for the constituency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm from Zhang. In fact, Zhang is a community 12 kilometers from Tamale. I was born and bred in Tamale because that is where my parents lived. But I actually come from Zhang. I attended Methodist Primary School. It is popularly known as Kulkuli School in Tamale. Coincidentally, myself and Honorable Haruna attended the same school. And Mr. Chairman, you are aware in Parliament, Honorable Haruna do refer to even those of us who attended Kulkuli School. I attended Kulkuli School or Methodist Primary.
Is it the kulikuli we eat?
Yes, the kulikuli. In fact, the name was occasioned by the fact that there was a woman selling the kulikuli in the school. And it was said that that is what students in the school eat when they go to school. From Methodist Primary, I went to Methodist JSS. And from Methodist JSS, I went to one of the best secondary schools in Ghana, a secondary school attended by His Excellency the President, Ghana Secondary School. And from Ghana Secondary School, I went to Tamale Teacher Training College to be trained as a professional teacher with Certificate A. Then I proceeded to University of Ghana, where I read psychology. And from University of Ghana, I went to University of Science and Tech and did my first master's there in development planning. And I also went back to University of Ghana to do another master's there in international relations. I did other courses that I felt was not so important to add in the CV. So basically, that is my educational history.
Yes, any more?
Mr. Chairman, he hasn't finished. What's happened to you between 97 and 98?
97 and 98, I was at the Tamale Teacher Training College because I went there in 1996 and completed in 1999. It's a 3-year course.
Now, why do you have asterisks on your interest? What's the meaning?
I have
asterisks on your interest, research, development, youth and gender, community mobilization, leadership and governance, all having asterisks. What's the meaning of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They are not asterisks. I think that is just a problem with the computer, but they're actually not. I really wanted to use arrows. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No,
yes.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. I hope you have paid your taxes to the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've actually done that, and then I went to the internal revenue as I did before the 2012 elections. And they told me that I needed to update it because between that time and now it's about a year, which they have actually done. But they told me they will forward it to Parliament and that I should come it to be forwarded to Parliament. So I want to believe that it has been forwarded to the committee or to Parliament.
This one you can choose not to answer, but just to find out whether you have a child or children.
Oh, I have. In fact, I'm here with my beautiful wife, and I guess my handsome son is also here.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because I've seen somebody, a child sitting by somebody I suspect to be your wife, but it's missing on your CV.
I added married, and actually I was called, and that information was actually given. I'm surprised it wasn't captured in the CV.
Want to amend it?
Yes,
to include it?
Precisely so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I
have one son.
Honorable Okujecha Blacko.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and let me congratulate Comrade Murtala, as we call him, a student activist. I disclose my interest here that I know the nominee very well. We go way back in student activism. I wish to congratulate him on his appointment. Mr. Chairman, the first one is the name, just for our records. Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed. On your CV, you spell your Mohammed with a U, but the communication we have from the president is an O, just for our records. Which one should we use?
I think the U is... Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The U is the correct one, but many people spell Mohammed with O. Even if you look at the name Murtala, some spell it Murtala, some spell it Muntala, but mine is Murtala, M-U-R. So I use, and I can quite remember even in Parliament, I did indicate that the right spelling should be done. So mine is M-U-H-A-M-M-A-D.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well noted. Mr. Chairman, again, the objective. It will appear that the nominee did not tailor the CV for this particular assignment. I noticed that your objective is still very generic, that to obtain the requisite on-the-job training that will enhance my ability to be an agent of positive change and development and contribute to the opening of a new page of success in any establishment and people I work with. In this case, you know the ministry you are going to, the Ministry of Information. So I hope we'll get your permission to amend that to suit the particular office for which this CV is tailored towards. I also noticed from your CV that you do not, and please you can just indicate, I want to run through them page by page, so you can just indicate the concerns. You do not indicate your religion, the educational background. You talk about a short course you did with the World Bank on labor market and job creation. You do not indicate where. There are World Bank offices everywhere in the world, whether in Ghana, New York, wherever. If you can be kind to let us know. You do not also indicate where you did your national service. There's no national service here. Then page 2 of your CV, you Deputy National Coordinator, National Youth Employment Program, 2009 to, I don't know what year you are trying to, I suspect you want 2012. You have 212 here. But I suspect that it should be 2013 because it's run to 6 January, or unless you resigned. So if you can just throw light on that for us. You also have an abbreviation here under leadership experience, President OGA. If you can let us know what OGA stands for. You do not indicate President OGA and Secretary OGA between 2001 and 2003. Then page 3, papers presented. You do not indicate the kind of papers, whether they were academic or they were speeches you delivered, and where you presented those papers. There's no indication of that. The paper on maintaining peace in Dagbon. I see an interesting spelling of Dagbon. You are an academic. I don't know if there's a reason for that. Then your referees, my last concerns. You have Mrs. Teresa Y. Ba Enum with an H. Is that the correct? Because the first time I'm coming by this name, if you can indicate if it's correct. You don't also give us the full name of your last two referees. You don't give us their first names. You only have their surnames. So that will be it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The course I did was with the World Bank, 1818th Street in Washington. My national service, Mr. Chairman, Comrade Okujoto is well aware that having finished University of Ghana and did a service as a teaching assistant.
He may be aware, but we are not aware.
Yes. As a teaching assistant for just 2 months, I contested elections with the University Students Association of Ghana and became an executive officer. So I worked there as an executive officer alongside my national service. Just as even in NUX, the coordinating secretary is an executive officer and he uses it as his national service because you contest for those positions after you have graduated. The other thing, OGA is Old Ghana School Students Association and University of Ghana campus. I was the secretary and subsequently became the president of the association. Dagbon, the spelling, in fact, the right spelling of Dagbon is what you have here. Dagbon comes with O-N-G. And Mr. Chairman, I take keen interest in Dagbani as a subject, and I take serious concerns about even the spelling. You realize that many people will spell Dagbang as D-A-G. Sometimes the B doesn't even come, A-N. And I think that the ong must come. And ong is, in pronunciation, is the O-N-G. So I'm particular about that. I think that is it, Mr. Chairman.
You've left a couple, the religion, and then where your papers, when what kind of papers?
The religion, I think this information was also out and it was given. I'm a practicing Muslim, not a ceremonial one, a truly practicing Muslim. And
who believes in all the principles?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So which capacity are you operating as at now?
I think that this question was asked yesterday, and I believe that
Who asked you that question yesterday? Because we didn't start this vetting yesterday.
not me. This question was asked yesterday to a colleague of mine who appeared here by the same senior brother of mine, Honorable Baba Jamal, as to whether he believes in the same principle. I think it is important for people to understand that there is nowhere in the Quran that says marry one. In fact, it's an ayah in the Holy Quran. The ayah says that marry two if you can be fair and just between them. Marry three if you can be fair and just among them. Marry four if you can be fair and just among them. But if you know you can't, stick to one. That is what the Quranic quotation says. Nowhere. Equally in the Bible, which I have particular interest and did in Legon, nowhere in the Bible that is stated categorically that marry one. There is nowhere. I think that there have been several interpretations, and I have challenged my friends who are even in Christianity. I think that it's an opportunity.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I attended mission schools throughout my life, and University of Ghana. In fact, I registered Bible knowledge as a free elective for 1 whole year because I wanted to understand the religion and appreciate it better. And I believe that having done Bible knowledge for 1 year, it opened my horizon to make me appreciate the Christian faith. I just brought that just to let people understand that in our social setup, people take advantage of the fact that there is a leverage for a Muslim to marry 4. And now people took advantage of that. The Quran ayah is explicit. It starts with 2, it moves to 3, it moves to 4 with a condition and says that if you can't be fair and just among them, stick to 1. But I have heard people say Islam says marry 4, and therefore you must. So it means that you can
Honorable
marry 4
nominee,
depending on the
please.
circumstances.
We have had enough of that. Let's, Honorable Kujoto, any more? If not,
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to follow
Yeah,
up on that.
he's yet to respond to the papers and the referees.
Okay, I'm coming. I want to, you see, Mr. Jama, please, I want to do a follow-up on that. You are going to be a minister of state, so we expect that you are a just person, because the president will not appoint somebody who is not just. So if the Quran says you are just, and you are saying that if you can be just, are you saying that you cannot be just? That's why you want to stick to 1? Is that what you are suggesting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just quoting what the Quran says. And who am I?
Are you going to be just? Will you want to increase your capacity, or you want to stick to 1? That's a simple question. Yes or no?
I will do my possible best to be just and fair. But as a human, you can understand. I can't say here and I can't sit and say absolutely I'm a just person.
So there are intentions ahead.
I'll do my possible best to be fair and just.
Okay.
yes, any more on the CV?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The papers, Mr. Chairman, as a student leader, and several papers were presented, and if I were to add some of the papers I did present, I believe that it would have been so voluminous. What actually happened is that most of the programs that you attended, an honorable member when he was a student leader did invite me on several occasions to come present papers on some of the issues. I can't specifically say that I presented this paper here because some of the papers, you present them in several fora. But specifically on the issue of maintaining peace in Dagbang, I can quite remember it was presented at the KNUSC after I completed by the Dagbang Students Association. So I can't specifically say that on this program because some of them, you present them on several programs. But all these things, papers were presented when I was a student leader. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, any more?
On the referees, to be very sincere, I have forgotten the surname of Mr. Atindambila and Professor Dankwa. So I have forgotten. I didn't want to just guess any name. I tried calling Mr. Atindambila. Unfortunately, I wasn't getting the line.
Can you let us understand the paper that you presented, which is and many others? Can you give us the on that paper, which is called On Many Others?
Which page, Mr. Chairman?
Page 3.
Okay.
Papers presented. I want to know the last one, which is the paper you presented, which is named And Many Others. I want to understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did indicate here just a while ago that as a student leader, and my senior brother is well aware as a former student leader, that he presented several papers. And the many others was just to state that there were other papers which I couldn't provide in the CV. Because
so it's not a paper?
It's not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more on the CV? Okay, let's move into the area of the real substance. Who is going to say, okay, Honorable Kujecha Blakwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to kick the ball rolling. Congratulations once again to Comrade Murtala. My first question, which I believe that many people will want him to answer, has to do with a certain perception about the nominee's temperament. There's a view out there that the nominee is quick-tempered and is prone to conflict, or, if you like, to quarrels. I would want to know from the nominee how he responds to that, and how he can assure this committee that in the pursuit of his duties as a Deputy Minister of Information, which requires a lot of cool-headedness and a lot of sober reflection, he will not jeopardize the conduct of his responsibilities. My second question, Mr. Chairman, will have to do with the much talked about Media Development Fund. There seemed to be a lot of debate about it. Recently, the minister made some donations. We hear that some practitioners are not too sure whether they needed laptops. I refer to GIBA as one of the key stakeholders in the sector. I do know that the NMC also thinks that they should manage the Media Development Fund. There seems to be an emerging turf war between the NMC and the Ministry of Information. What view does the nominee take on the matter of the Media Development Fund, and how does he hope to assist the minister to really operationalize this vision of the president to build capacity of the Ghanaian media using the Media Development Fund? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that in answering the question, I would want to briefly state that Comrade Okujeto knows me very well. At least we've been in the trenches as student leaders for almost 6-7 years. I believe that he'll be in a better position to tell people who am I. But be it as it may, I was brought up by my late father, who died at the age of over 90, and he taught me certain values that I would always uphold. My senior brother, I hope, who is here, who was also taking care of us, and that enhances our teaching with regards to those values of being truthful at all times, values of being confident and courage, and not being pretentious. You look straight in the face of someone and tell the person what he wants to hear, tell the person what the truth is. And I think that these are values that every single individual would want his or her children to uphold. In that light, I think that there's some perception, unfortunately, that we live in a state where people want to hear what is pleasing to their ears. That is what people want to hear. If you tell people the truth on issues, either they say you are arrogant or they say that you are quick-tempered. I can understand sometimes the challenges as a psychology student. I did a course called Perception, and it was interesting. Anybody who did that course, Perception, they bring an item or a picture. The whole of this room will give different interpretations and meaning to the picture. I think that is how I see it. Someone may be absolutely quiet, and people would still find faults with him. I think that I am very strong on my conviction, and I have learned as a young person in politics that sometimes you need to be quiet. Maybe probably that is what I haven't been able to do. And I've learned that sometimes you need to be quiet no matter how hurtful certain things or wrongs are going on. But I ask a simple question, whether that is the kind of society we want to build. We want to build a society where people would pretend even when they see wrong going on. I think that in that light, people may have definitions and perceptions about you. But as long as what I do is the truth and honest, with the conviction of sincerity, I am not so much worried about sometimes perception people have. In as much as I think that as a person you live in a society, you sometimes need to conform with the societal order. Psychology would tell you that every human being, your life is shaped by either nature or nurture. And the nature is what you are born with, and the nature is what you acquire in the environment. I agree sometimes you need to acquire some of the expectations of society. And in that light, Mr. Chairman, I think that life itself is a full of transformation, and I have been transformed. Many people would understand that ever since this nomination was given to me, you realize that the posture has actually changed. It has changed for a reason. It has changed for a reason because I know how sensitive that ministry is. Because it's a ministry one statement can make and unmake you. It's a ministry that one statement can make and unmake even the government. I am very conscious of the challenges that I'm confronted with, and thank God that I'm going to be assisting a minister who I didn't know today. Honorable Ayerga was the Nkrumah House Prefect when I was in SSS2, I guess so, and he was in Upper Six. I have known him for a very long time as a brother, and I have indeed gone to him severally for counseling and assistance. Thank God I'm also going to a ministry to ably support our minister with another vibrant and intelligent young person whom I have known for a very long time, Felix Kwachi. Felix Kwachi, when I went to Tech to do my first master's, he was a vibrant student leader who was an undergraduate student in University of Science and Tech, and I had a relationship with him. I believe that we would bring together, and what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, is not what pleases us, but what reflects the vision of His Excellency the President. The President has indicated that our demeanor, our actions should reflect the demeanor of His Excellency the President. So I will be guided by the demeanor of His Excellency the President, and therefore certain things that we used to do, certainly we can't do them any longer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Kujetu.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just before he answers the second question, I asked the first question because of, the recent news publications about two spats that he had here in this house. And he seems to be blaming the whole, it will appear that he thinks that those who take the view are relying only on perception. But perhaps maybe the two incidents that happened recently is what they are hinging that perception on. Does he think with hindsight that he probably overreacted when in those two incidents? I do not want to mention the name of the MPs involved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What incidents are you talking about?
I'm sure the nominee remembers. These are spats that happened in Parliament, which were widely reported.
Chairman, I think that as a panel, we should understand questions that have been put across. For the chairman to rule whether it's appropriate or not appropriate.
But I thought the questions are for the nominee, and the nominee hasn't complained that he doesn't understand the questions. No, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that these are very important questions. These are not private matters. These are matters which are widely reported. And it's in the nominee's own interest to clear the air so that people have the assurance and the confidence.
If that is the case, mention the incidents, and then you can go ahead and answer.
I have referred to two incidents with members of Parliament, kind of a public spat or quarrel, that broke out, which spilled over in the media. I think they had hot exchanges,
I will mention for you.
I'll take the chairman's advice. If the chairman wants me to mention okay. I refer to the incident with Honorable Oslo Usu and Honorable Anodompre. These are the two incidents I'm referring to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that is an opportunity once again to let people understand what actually happened. And I wouldn't want to mention their names because naturally it would be unfair for them because they wouldn't have the opportunity I have now to explain to people my side of the story. It happened I went on a program on Good Morning Ghana with another member of Parliament from the MPP, whose name I wouldn't mention. Some statements were made. It had to do with Honorable Haruna Idrisu's name not appeared in the first list, and for which reason some young men in Tamale rioted. Now, I looked at it, we all condemned it, and that is not the kind of democracy we want to build. I was the first person to speak on the topic. Now, after I spoke, that honorable member, when he was given the opportunity to speak, he started by saying, because the Western region people were civilized, they didn't do what the people in Tamale did. I think that every single individual who wants the peace and stability of this country would be concerned. So I said that was an unfair statement, and I demanded an apology. I made a reference to another public statement that another honorable member made, to the effect that, but for free education, Northerners would have been rearing cattle. In fact, some names were even mentioned. These are public statements. So I said, when you have leading members of a political party making such statements, people would think that that is the position of that political party. And I thought that MPP would have been happy for the statement I made, because clearly I was insulating or exonerating the party from the statements made by leading members of that party. That was all. The next day, that honorable member went on the program and launched vitriolic attacks on me. I never bothered, because she had the opportunity also to respond. The next day, I went to Parliament. I saw that honorable member with another honorable member from the minority. Then they called me. I went there, and the first thing I realized was that I was confronted. And those who were there, including journalists who were there who reported it, are witnesses to this. When the honorable member started, I was listening. I pulled a chair, just sat closer to her, because I thought that as honorable members, we were not just politicians who mount radio stations and say all manner of things. I realized that it was becoming too much. The tempo was rising. And as a human, I needed to respond. I never used those words she used on me. That is the facts of the matter. Now, you had another incident when His Excellency the President came to give the State of the Nation's address. Members of the minority boycotted the program. They left. I was granted an interview after the State of the Nation's address, and I spoke extensively about the issues, the things, and the critical issues His Excellency the President stated, his vision about this nation, and what we want to do for this nation within the 4 years. And I concluded with an humorous question, that I thought the members of the minority who boycotted the State of the Nation address would have boycotted the refreshment. And indeed, Mr. Chairman, that was a statement of fact. I never concocted it. And indeed, I have witnesses. Honorable member is just here. He was there when we saw some of them. Honorable Ni Ashimo was there when we saw some of them. And I asked a humorous question. That food is not for majority, it's for all of us. I asked a humorous question. Yet, this honorable member, for whatever reason, who happened to be a very good friend of mine, granted an interview to a radio station, a newspaper, and said all manner of things. I didn't see the paper, Mr. Chairman. I came to Parliament, and a journalist from one radio station, I don't want to mention that journalist's name and that radio station, met me and said, Honorable Murtala, have you heard what this honorable member said about you in papers? I said, what did he say? He said this and this. I said, I haven't seen the paper, and I would want to talk to that honorable member because he's a friend of mine. Then I moved. I came, he wasn't in Parliament. I asked another honorable member, Dr. Bismarck, and I asked him, this is what I heard my friend said about me. I don't have his number. Talk to him. It is not fair for us to do this to each other. Now, he told me he called him and he denied. I said, that is the end of the matter, regardless what was published in the papers. The next day, we had proceedings. After the proceedings, I went to the Speaker's office. This same journalist followed me, insisted. I said, look, I told you this, and I had information that he never said those things. He insisted that he wanted to have an interview on a different issue. I spoke on that issue, spoke on this issue, and I said, on condition. I said, if, and this is a conditional statement. Now, this journalist, after interviewing me, moved to that honorable member and said, Honorable Murtala said this and this. Then he also just went ahead. I never even attacked her. I just spoke about it and admonished. Now he attacked me. Then that journalist didn't stop there. He went to the chairman of the Privileges Committee. That two honorable members are fighting. I don't think that this is the kind of robust, rusted, and outlandish journalism that we want to have in this country. We need fairness, and journalists have a responsibility because they play a very critical role in the democratic process we have in this nation. I was so disappointed that that was done. They sent the thing to a radio station. They didn't play what I said. They didn't play what the gentleman said. They played what I said, create the impression as if Murtala like.
Okay, honorable nominee, I think we've heard enough. You should learn lessons from this kind of incident so that we know the way forward. You understand me? I don't want us to go on and on and on. Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, a second. Okay. Okay.
The question on the Media Development Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's something that I would certainly support. I have worked with the media for such a long time. as a student leader, and Comrade Okujoto is aware, I've worked with media in Ghana and the continent of Africa because I was once the Deputy Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union. And I think that Honorable Omani is also here. It's important to state that he advised me to contest for the position of the All Africa Students Union. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. At the point when he said, Murtala, if you don't contest, we get someone to contest. I think that that has also helped to shape my political career. I've had long-standing relationship, and with NYEP, I've worked with the media for almost 4 years, or more than 4 years. I've never had a problem with any media house. I think it's significant that everything we will do to enhance democracy must be done, and the media play a critical role. I think that establishing this fund is something that is positive in our quest to deepen our democracy as a people. Contrary to the view many people have that the NDC is anti-media, and I can understand sometimes those concerns raised because the way the party was formed from the PNDC, and certainly military junta and the media certainly wouldn't have good rapport, if you like. But I think that the NDC has moved on. To establish this is the clearest indication to all that if there is any political party in this country that seeks the interests of the media, then it's the NDC. I think that the support that is given for the media houses, regardless whether the media house is critical of NDC or not, I think it's something that we need to encourage. On the laptops, Mr. Chairman, I think the laptops are significant. They are virtually becoming mobile phones. If you walk home, you leave home in the morning and you get to Parliament, I believe, Mr. Chairman, without your mobile phone, it will look as if part of you is missing because it's an inalienable part of us. And I think that for journalists and the media men to do their work effectively and efficiently, I think that they need laptops. You can't carry a desktop. You certainly can't carry a desktop. And now for such opportunity to be created where government sees the need to provide them with such laptops, I think we can only encourage it. Maybe the question has to do with how it was distributed. Is it that people who were supposed to be given were not given? I don't think so. I have had some discussions with the Honorable Minister on this issue, and I think that it was fairly distributed. Indeed, you would have some groupings who haven't gotten, but at least every journey starts with a step, and I believe that that is what this government has done. I think it's a very laudable idea.
Right, thank you. Honorable Dominic Azuma.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, congratulations, Murtala, and two quick ones. You just talked to us and you mentioned NYEP. My mind just came up. The topical issue of today is about a bit of challenges the NYEP is facing. You were part of the top hierarchy running this program. There are reported cases of top officials trying to use the program to enrich themselves, and that it has sent the program into a little bit of difficulty. You were part of the team. What actions or what steps did you take if the reporter was right, whoever gave that information, if he was right? What steps did management take to be able to assure Ghanaians that, yes, it's still necessary for us to continue with this program? Second point, I see that in your CV you did a lot of work on decentralization, for that good governance. And I'd like to find out from you, there is this critical recommendation from the National Constitutional Review Commission, the committee, that is suggesting that it is time this country goes into elections of the chief executives. Opinions are divided in the country. In your own candid opinion, having done some work into this, do you think it's feasible for now for us to embark on such a program? Just these questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Issues of unemployment is a global challenge, and I believe that in the United States of America today, they are grappling with it. And the extent to which, if you don't ensure that something is done, you may have upheavals. And I think that we are witnesses to what happens in the Arab Spring. It was occasioned by the fact that young people did not have jobs to do. So, and the NYEP for me, it was the best thing that this country could ever have even produced. And I commend the previous administration for starting a program like that. I think that it was initiated and implemented in 2006. I think that when we came into office, indeed, there were a lot of things that were not done, and I can understand sometimes the exigencies of it. The National Security conducted a survey, and the report was so shocking that something needed to be done, and failure to do so, we could have had our Ghanaian or West African spring, and I believe that that brought about the NYEP. Now, when we came to office, we did a lot, and sometimes it hurts. It's frustrating that something that you serve with all dedication and the kind of leadership we had, and to be very honest, Honorable Abuga Pele, without holding brief for him, I think that he's an outstanding leader. For me, he helped shape my political career, and I enjoyed working with him. That we did a lot as a people. We provided a lot of programs. We indeed improved the implementation of the program. Yet you have an unfortunate incident that has made people completely forget of the success story of the NYEP, and that hurts me so much. The impression is also created, and has been reported, as if when the issue came, nothing happened. I think that it is not accurate. Something did happen. The information was given to NYEP. I guess someone, if I can quite remember, reported. And immediately we had a management meeting. And the national coordinator, in the person of Honorable Abuga Pele, constituted a committee to investigate it. 2 officers were sent to Ashanti region. They came back with their report, and the national coordinator then informed the Minister for Youth and Sports, because the NYEP, now JIDA, falls under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Now the minister said, considering the gravity of the report and the information that was given, there was the need for something to be done. I can quite remember even that time, as a spokesperson for the program, I spoke to this issue through the media. The impression is created as if it was just quiet, nobody knew anything. I still remember I issued statement to that effect. I granted interviews with radio stations and TV stations on this allegation. Now, people were investigated, preliminary reports were submitted, and an action was actually taken. And part of the action was that the Ashanti Regional Coordinator was suspended, pending more investigation. The Deputy Regional Coordinator was sacked, and he was asked to pay some money, and I know he has paid those monies. Some district coordinators, including members at management, head office, were suspended because we realized that this thing was happening in Ashanti region. Now, what we thought at management was that we could have widespread of that thing happening across the country. We needed to get a professional body that has the power and the capacity to do thorough investigation. So the national security was actually called into, and the national security commenced investigation into that story. And I think that we need to look at it in that perspective. But it's important also to say that, yes, it's a positive sign that you have a journalist who indeed has reminded the people of this country that, look, something is going on, there is a road, and we ought to commend the gentleman and journalists in this country, at least for playing that watchdog role, not the lapdog role. Playing that watchdog role, at least to unearth perceived corruption. And I think that the action that the National Youth Employment Program took is in conformity with the vision of the NDC under His Excellency Professor Mills, and now under His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, that any time there is any suspicion of corruption, some action ought to be taken. And I think that people should commend this government for taking that action. You know, the reason why this thing seemed to be forestalled has to do with the fact that we have 197 or 99 districts across the country. Now, if you want to do thorough investigation, certainly it will take some time. And I believe this thing happened somewhere around October before 2008 elections. So it's understandable that people would want some speedy resolution into the investigation. I think that we need to look at it in that perspective. But to be very honest, I think that it's an opportunity to commend the gentleman for what he did. He just reminded people that we need to do more than we are doing. And I think that we should give people that fair hearing. Because some of the concerns they raised, those who were interdicted, those who were suspended, that they were not given fair hearing. And natural justice demands that you should give people that opportunity to tell you their side of the story. Now, if you have a competent body that is doing that, you ought to commend the institution. And I think that it is relating also to see what the minister is doing. Honorable Elvis Afri Ankara, I think the constituting that committee will put to rest all this hullabaloo as to whether people actually chop money or not. It's important for the sanity of the program so that the good work that we did as members of management would also be reflective in the implementation of the models that we did. Mr. Chairman, it's important also to note that If you look at the kind of models that were initiated or created under the management, under Prof. Mills, it's positive. For which reason? The World Bank is committing $65 million to the program. Now, the World Bank is not just anybody that will commit even $1 to a program if they don't do thorough investigation to be convinced that this program, the way you manage it, is viable. The World Bank did that. I attended a program in the United States, and I tell you that NYEP under our management was adjudged the best youth employment program globally. This program was organized by the World Bank. And I think that if I sit here today, people create the impression nothing happened, it's about chop chop. I think it's important. Also, if you look at the debt that the NYEP has today, and we are told that about 200 million at the Ministry of Youth and Sport, even we inherited about 240 billion old Ghana cedis. That is the challenge we have. It is also significant to look at the commitment of the NDC government in providing decent jobs for young people. What the government did was to move away from the paid jobs and create jobs in which young people will be empowered with the needed skill training. They give you the training and then they set you up. We hear of the less debt, the yes debt. I think that is significant we look at it. Also, this government came and committed 60% of the communication service tax to the NYEP. And that is a positive sign. I think that if it has to do with what government has done and the successes of the NYEP story, it's important they are told. That notwithstanding, that we need to be concerned about these allegations of corruption, fraud, and other things. But I think that we should allow the national security to complete their investigation, and I believe that natural justice and the committee that is set up, I have no doubt in the competency and the fairness of members of the committee. I think that they will do a good job, and this matter will be put to rest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Second question. Mr. Chairman, permit me to use
Honorable nominee, try to keep your answers as brief as possible without compromising content as much as possible.
Mr. Chairman, permit me to express my condolences to a professor or a doctor who taught me and unfortunately died, Dr. Koko, at the Planning Department of the University of Ghana. I'm saying this in reference to the response I'm going to give. I think that the issue of having MMDCs elected is positive. Long before the Constitution Review Committee came out with their findings in 2008, I did a work. In fact, it was actually part of my thesis. And part of the recommendation was that we could have MMDCs elected. The question has always been that the DCE or the MCE is the chairman of the Security Council, and therefore if you have a DCE who belongs to a different political party, the president is visiting there, you can assure. I think that it has to do with the suspicion we have with each other. It seems to me we live in a country, we look at each other with scorn because we belong to different political parties. I think that if we want to have this decentralization fully implemented, this is something that is feasible. That is not to say that the concerns people are raising are not concerns we should look at. I think that we have, fortunately, as a country, we still have people who have in-depth knowledge in this issue. You talk of Professor Kwame Nahoy. I mean, he's an outstanding personality, and I buy every single publications of his. You have even the current minister for local government. He has profound knowledge, if you like, in this local governance and decentralization. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that is something that is feasible. And I suggested that if we can look at one political party having their candidates who would contest, and then having contested, then you choose. And people will question that why is it that the contest is limited to only political party? I believe there is an opportunity to solve this problem of suspicion as to the people do not belong to that party, and therefore if you have a DCE who is from a different political party, you can't assure the security of the president. If the people know that those who are given the opportunity to contest per recommendation of the Constitution Review Committee, at least they still know that they are all from the same political party. But the DCEs will realize that they are answerable to the people and not just the president. But if I know that I'm answerable to only the president may not know what is happening in Savulugu Nantong district. He may not know, and accept something that is, you may be doing some, but if he knows that he's answerable to the people. Another critical point, Mr. Chairman, that I would want to raise on the issue of the 30% members of the assembly who are appointed. It's amazing in this country, assemblyman effectiveness and efficiency is assessed based on the number of outdoors and funerals he attends. In fact, this was one of the findings. This assemblyman is a very good assemblyman because anytime at all there's an outdoor, you see him there. people still do not realize that they have a responsibility to serve as liaison officers between the people and then the assembly. Now, the challenge is that this 30%, if you look at the local government act, the Act 462, the 30% is to take care of something. Assuming, without any disrespect to teachers, I'm a trained teacher, assuming that all those who are elected as assembly members are teachers. Now, you don't have someone with a background of accounting, or if you like, science or psychology or whatever. The 30% is to give the government and the stakeholders an opportunity to fill in, if you like, the gaps. Unfortunately, all the political parties, and I will say this without any fear, we've all flouted this. What happens is that the stakeholders are interested in choosing party members, regardless whether they have expertise in accounting or science or whatever. They are just party members, and they must be. And all the parties are blamable. I think that we need to take a different look. That in as much as you want to even get party members to constitute the 30%, but we should be looking at people who can actually contribute to enrich the debate at the assembly. I believe if you do this, we can truly have the decentralization. Last point, Mr. Chairman. If you look at the Procurement Act, it's amazing. You have the District Tender Board, you have the Tender Board Review Committee. You look at the Tender Board, that determines who should be given contract. The DCE is part, the coordinating director, those who constitute the members of the team, and to be able to form a quorum are all members who are working under the DCE. Now, they tell you that even the Tender Board, you must serve the District Director of Education and Health. Give them notices 2 weeks. What I realize is that they will delay. Some of the district directors don't even stay in the district. They will delay and send the notices about 2 days, 3 days. Or sometimes they will wait when they realize that the Director of Health and Education are not in town, then they would have a meeting. So at the end of the day, the contract is given to someone they want to execute. The Tender Review Committee, those who constitute it, apart from the members of the Assembly, to a very large extent are answerable to the DCE. I think that is something we need to look at. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. You talked about the election of DCEs. Have you also seen the recommendation of the Constitutional Review Commission and their recommendation that the people have to go through an interview at the Public Services Commission? I mean, do you as a politician believe that political parties have no way of vetting appointees such that you ask those appointees, political people who want to seek political office, to go to a public service organization to be interviewed and shortlisted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that I indicated the concerns that people have raised and why they think that the elections of MMDCs is not possible, because they think that they raise concerns about security because the DC is the chairman of the District Security Committee. I believe that the recommendation of the Constitutional Review for me is excellent, at least to give semblance of independence of the committee that will be vetting the people. Mr. Chairman, assuming that you have selected 3 people for my district, and these people are going to be vetted by, if you say, regional executive of a political party, I mean, certainly people who don't belong to a party will still raise this suspicion. Democracy itself is a process. And in as much as I agree that parties have the capacity to vet people or interview them, I think that the Public Service Commission, I mean, I think that they are seen as more or less neutral arbiters in this. And it gives some semblance of independence. And I believe with time, our democracy is less than 30 years. If we also get to over 200 years in our democratic practice, I believe that we'll begin to elect them regardless whether they belong to one party or B. But I think that is a process.
Yes, Honorable Queensta, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, my brother. I just want to know, how are you going to help your minister reverse this thinking of the public that the Ministry for Information is a propaganda ministry? How are you going to help your minister do that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I indicated that Honorable Ayarga has been someone I relied so much for counseling and advice. And I guess when he was even the lawyer to Honorable Okujeto, we were all involved in that case. I think that I have excellent relationship with him, and I've had some discussions with him, even when I didn't know that I was going to that ministry. I know that he's so convinced to ensure that this thing is demystified. The NDC, the establishment of the Media Development Fund, as I indicated, is the clearest demonstration to everybody that this is a political party that seeks the interests of media pluralism in Ghana. Mind you, under the NDC that we had, the liberalization of the airwaves, several radio stations were actually established. But as to whether the NDC is, the Ministry of Information is a propaganda machinery, I think that is another issue. My people have a proverb, Mr. Chairman, that if a person is not sleeping, you want to wake him up. It's difficult. If I pretend to be sleeping and then you pick me and dump me in the sea, I'll still be snoring. I think that people have made up their mind that whether you like it or not, they will tag the NDC. Because maybe the unfortunate thing is that in our structure as a party, we have an office called Propaganda Office. I don't think that propaganda per se is something bad. I really don't think so. Propaganda itself is a means of selling your ideas and explaining to people what your party stands for and what you intend to do for the benefit of the people of this country. It will be difficult though, but we also need to change certain things. I strongly believe that under Prof. Mills and under President Mahama, the ministers of information and deputy ministers who came there have done tremendously well. You know, the momentum, the gravity with which they describe the ministry as a propaganda ministry has reduced. And I believe that with time, people will begin to realize that no, these gentlemen are doing so well because that is a very sensitive ministry. And Honorable Ayerga, I know he's committed, and we would support him as his deputies to achieve the enhancement of the Better Ghana agenda for all Ghanaians.
Yes, Honorable Benita Okititwia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to you, Honorable colleague nominee. You were talking about your ministry being a propaganda ministry. Now you have a substantive minister and two very competent deputy ministers. Do you think there's a need to have a government communication team? Thank you.
Well, I think that on the issue of government communication team, I was a member of the government communication team, and I think that that group did tremendously well. But let me also admit that there were some challenges. This is not a secret. The extent to which even people went on radio, party communication, and government communication. Unfortunately, that was a very bad spectre. But I think that there is some understanding now, because you learn from your mistakes. The understanding now is that there shouldn't be problems. And I have seen, I attended the meetings, and I realized that hitherto those who were in party communication are now sitting in those meetings. It helps you to coordinate your activities very well. So government communication is important. Party communication is important. It depends on what you speak on. I can't get up as the Deputy Minister of Information and just say that I'm going to talk about energy. I suggest at any point in time that when there are problems like energy, the minister, there are people who have the responsibility of discharging it. We have ECG. I can't come and be talking about a problem. That is the problem of ECG. I don't think that I should be talking about that. And I like I said, everything we do, the directive and the guidance will be given by our minister. We are there to support him, execute the vision of His Excellency the President.
Honorable Baba Jamal and then Honorable Rikopoku.
Yes, Murtala. I think that before we came to power, or before this second administration, you have been one of the arrowheads of the NDC communication team. And you have been very, very critical about, especially about the opposition. Now you are going to occupy a public office as an MP and in charge of government communication. Are you going to continue that same role? Are you going to be going on allergy and other things and that are so critical of the opposition? What will be your attitude? That is one. The second thing is that you, Ministry of Information, fortunately all of us have had the opportunity to go through that ministry. It's one of the ministry that the slightest thing you say turns into an anthill becomes a mountain in seconds. Now, and it is the ministry that has very little resources in terms of budgetary allocations, IGF almost non-existent. I'm wondering what innovative ideas you are bringing into the ministry advising your minister how to manage. And you know, it is also a place that all the food soldiers will be coming and thinking that you have the money. So what different thing are you bringing into that ministry to still maintain the momentum in that ministry? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Critical of my opponents, I think that as a young boy when I was growing up, I guess somewhere JSS2, I read a book of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And permit me, Mr. Chairman, if I can still paraphrase what Malcolm X said, which has served as an inspiration for me at that age from JSS to SSS till now, that I'm for truth no matter who says it. I'm for justice no matter who is it for or against. I'm a human being first and foremost. As such, I'm for whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole. It has always been my guiding principle. I think that our politics needs some decency, and decency is that people should always tell the truth, no matter how hurtful that truth is. And I think that that has always been something that I stood on. I have been very concerned about statements I make. I try to get my facts right before I make any statement. I thought you were going to say that sometimes the criticism is even on my own party, because clearly I think that wherever you see wrong, it's important to let people understand that that is wrong. I am not against anybody in MPP or my political opponents, but you have a responsibility to sit on a program and defend your party, at least with truth. Indeed, sometimes you go on a radio program, and after the program, you sit down and ask yourself, did I say this? To be very honest, we all have such regrets. You go for a program, and after the program, you have people even from the opposition who would call and tell you that you need to tone down. I can understand. I'm a young man. I think that we are still in the learning process. But I'll be critical when necessary. But as to whether I'll sit on Alaji and news file, as long as that is a means to inform people in this country as to government policies and how those policies are implemented, I think that I will continue doing that. On the issue of innovation and what I bring on board, I think that I'll bring loyalty. Is very important. Honorable Ayerga is an exceptional politician. I say this because I have learned a lot from him. He's intelligent, he's a lawyer. I am not a lawyer, and I think that there are certain things that you say that you need to be very careful. I'll bring dedication, I'll bring hard work to support him execute his vision, which is a reflective of the vision of His Excellency the President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Honorable Ekupo.
Mr. Chairman, the honorable nominee is moving into a ministry which used to be Ministry of Information, and now His Excellency has added, that is number one. Then two, media relations at the national level can be handled properly. But how do you handle media relations at the regional and district levels? How do you think this can be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As to whether the media relations has actually changed the core mandate of the Ministry of Information, I'm not too sure. I think that it's just an emphasis that it's not just about information, but how you can give that information through the media effectively. I think that the media plays a critical role, like I said, in our democratic development. We've all agreed to choose democracy as a part that we charter. And I think that it's significant that this thing was added, Ministry of Information and Media Relations. Thank God that the minister himself, the substantive minister, has an outstanding relationship with the media. I believe, and that my brother and comrade Felix Kwache and myself, we have an outstanding relationship with the media, even though sometimes you have controversies, but there is some understanding of the relationship that we've had. Like I said in NYEP, I had a superb relationship, if you like, with the media. So I don't think that it has changed things much. The other issue on the media relation, as a media relation in Accra, that is and then the regions. I don't think that there's a sharp difference. Media information given, I think that the people of Accra, the quality of information, I think that is the same thing a village in my constituency called Chayile. They also need the same quality of information. I think that I don't think there is so much difference. But as to you look at the environment, certain things can be said here, which can be said somewhere because of cultural beliefs and differences. And I think that we need to take into perspective those things. But one thing I would suggest is that as a little boy, we used to have these information vans. They go around the communities. I believe that that is something that is no longer in practice, or if you like, it is no longer as effective as it was, maybe because of the springing up of FM stations and TV stations. I think that there are a lot of people who are still missing out. So it's something that I would suggest to my minister and see how best we can push that agenda. Sometimes even video, the inability of the NDC to tell the people of this country the kind of work we did between 2009 and 2012, I believe, affected us as a government. If we had informed people what we did, because we fulfilled over 80% of the promises we made in our manifesto, I don't think that would have had challenge. We would have had about 70% of the elections, and there wouldn't have been any court case as we see today.
Thank you very much. Before we discharge you, we would like to acknowledge the presence of a few dignitaries here. Honorable Ileche will take us through.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Mr. He cannot pronounce some names, so that's why they say I should call them. Mr. I don't know who I'm referring to. With your threats, I don't know who I'm referring to. The nominee's wife is here, Mrs. Salamatu Murtala. Chief Sofo Azoks, Regional Chairman. Honorable Hajia Boya Gariba, former Deputy Minister, Women and Children. Alhaji Umar Al-Hassan, NDC Regional Secretary. Honorable Husseini Hassan, DC Gushew. Honorable, no, it's not Gushew, it's Gushew. You don't know. That's why I told you that you couldn't have announced it. Honorable Askia Mohammed, MCE Savulugu. Honorable Dan Makandan, DC Myong. Alhaji Al-Hassan, Constituency Chairman, Nantong. Nashiru Mahama, Constituency Secretary, Nantong. Haruna Isaku, Constituency Organizer. Yakubu Gane, Youth Organizer. Abdulrahman Latif, Treasurer. Zakaria Majid, Campaign Manager. Whoa. Are we still doing the campaign? I thought it has passed. Then representatives of the old Ganaskans. I think the same people who came and sat down here, they remained. Then you have Idrisu Abdel Malik, Ambulance Service, Savulugu. And last but not the least, Issa Zakaria, Executive Member. Now, all of you who have come, on behalf of the chairman, I thank you for coming to support this young man.
Thank you very much. Honorable nominee, thank you for attending upon this committee. You are discharged.